Oh, Bryce, Bryce, Bryce. Nobody likes a pick-me girl. I didn't think it was possible to be so underwhelmed yet overwhelmed by a book at the same time, but here we are. I'm gonna tell you what I loved, what I absolutely hated about this book, but first, let's give you a little Dollar General summary. So this book starts off exactly where Crescent City 2 left off, with Bryce and Perithian. So we start out with that ACOTAR crossover. The language barrier is annoying, so Bryce eats a magic bean and becomes bilingual. There's a Midgard worm surprise party. Bryce, Nesta, and Azriel get a history lesson from a hologram. Nesta is slain, literally. Therian is an insufferable idiot. Hunt, Rune, and Baxian roleplay Saw. Rune gives Baxian a special snack. Then they all drink Red Bull. Ethan does accidental throat play. Lydia serves Boss Babe. Bryce and Hunt reunion gave absolutely nothing. Surprise! Lydia has 2 kids on a submarine, and they're giving mommy issues. The Asteri is Asterian. Hypaxia is back, I guess. Surprise! Arranged marriage. Hell is DTF with the Alliance. Hunt learns he has bigger daddy issues than he thought.
You're not my dad!
Parasite. Avalon levels up. Bryce decides she wants to attend a masquerade ball. Ethan graduates from diapers to pull-ups. Hypaxia cures COVID. Aquawar copycat battle. Underdog saves the day again. Lydia decides to cosplay Aelin. Pollux bends over and takes it from behind. Cue the song Black Hole Sun. Black Hole Sun, oh, won't you come? Bryce joins SpaceX. Hunt becomes Iron Man. Jessica comes in clutch with the Kylo Ren.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, dun, 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 dun. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, dun, dun. Ba, 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 ba.
Rainbows and Sunshine, My Little Pony remake, and it's serving Ethan and Therian's spotlight for the next book. Now that you know what happened in extremely descriptive details,
Incredibly descriptive details of the story so we all know.
let's cover the very small parts that I did enjoy. The plot. Spanning back from book 1, this plot is absolutely unhinged. For instance, things that you think would be of zero significance in the story somehow become very important later on, but it still makes sense. Second, the mass universe as a whole and the limitless possibilities that there are. There are connections Midgard has to ACOTAR and Throne of Glass that I would have never seen coming. We mostly focus on the connection to the ACOTAR realm, which is also the homeland of the Fae, but she still crop dust us a little bit with Throne of Glass by the stories that we hear from Jessica and Adis. It's honestly extremely impressive how she's able to throw so much information into these and yet it still makes sense. If I was judging this book solely from a fantasy standpoint, hold on, I gotta close the blinds. It's gonna get dark up in here. Okay. Alright. My hair's so tangly today. Okay. If I was judging this book solely from a fantasy standpoint, I would say that it is extremely smart and well done. The magic system is extremely complex and can be understood even by new readers. Third, the holograph of Thea's daughter. I love that this gave us an insight to the history of ACOTAR and the beginning of Midgard and what role the Asteri played in that. It was pretty dark, but of course to me that made it better. I will say though that I did predict whenever she was doing her whole history lesson that the prison was the Dust Court. But other than that, it was super fun to learn about. Fourth, the development of Lydia. This girl is a straight up boss babe mama bear. Her backstory was so heartbreaking and the things that she went through for her kids absolutely sent me. It was giving Mad Reese sacrificing himself under the mountain for Valeris. I feel like both of them had the exact same way of dealing with trauma and like putting on this persona of a hard for everybody to see, but when they're really softies on the inside. There are a lot of parallels between these two, and Reeson is one of my favorites, so naturally, Lydia's climbed her way up there to my favorite character list. I do hope in the next book that we do explore more of her connection to King Brandon from Throne of Glass, and how she's related to Alien and Dorian as well. And excuse me if I'm pronouncing these characters' names wrong. I know that it's supposed to be pronounced, I believe, Aelin Galathinius, but I call her Alien, and Rysand is supposed to be Reeson. But I will die on that hill. This man's name is Rysand. I'm just frustrated that we didn't get more of her character development because I feel like that could have been heavily explored. Which brings me to my next point, Lydia and Rune's relationship. These two are fastly creeping up as one of my favorite couples in the Mass universe. Their relationship was put through the absolute ringer in the beginning of this book, and honestly it hit me right in the stomach. Rune being tortured and Lydia having to participate was gruesome. When Lydia was on the verge of death and Rune says "you're dead to me," I wanted to throw myself off a cliff. And the surprise kids side plot, that actually hit me in the stomach as well. They just go through so much together in such a short period of time, and trust is broken and they're having to rebuild this relationship, and there just wasn't enough time. I haven't read their bonus chapters yet, but I've heard that they are absolutely stunning, so I'm very excited to read those soon. Next, we're going to talk about Ethan's character development. Now, was his rise to power extremely rushed and kind of high-key random? Yes, but it was definitely unexpected. Him killing Sigrid by the death punch to the throat, and that somehow brought him so much guilt that he rose to power, was absolutely unhinged. The reason that I like this character arc so much was because I literally could not stand this man, but he has shown that he has matured so much and has become such a likable character that I'm not mad about it. Even though it was hella random, it was much needed in my opinion. I'm also very excited that he has the snow elemental power that ties to Throne of Glass as well, so I'm not sure how she's gonna play that out, but it's yet another connection to that world. Now what you've been waiting for, buckle up, because we're gonna talk about what I did not like about this book. Okay. These nails are way too long. What is that in my lip? Okay. First off, the multiple POVs, it drove me absolutely off the wall. This woman would switch between like 4 POVs in the same chapter. It is definitely my biggest quarrel with this book. I don't mind multiple POVs, but I'm literally talking, there would be like 4 or 5 POVs, and we would be in the middle of a POV, and then she would just switch to the other one, and then she would switch again, and it's just like we never got actual time to immerse ourselves in the story. And I get that she was trying to be all cliffhanger-esque, but like, Jesus Christ, like, I literally was getting whiplash. I was so tired of the POV changes. There's no reason there should have been more than 2 POVs in one chapter. There were 4 different plots happening at the same time with different POVs. We got Bryce and Perithian, Hunt, Rune, and Baxian being tortured in the Asteri dungeon, Therian with the Viper Queen in the meat market, and then we got Ethan and the other random characters trying to figure out what the hell they're supposed to do. Literally every single time that we would be in the middle of a plot, it would be like a quarter of the way through the chapter, and then we would hit the POV switch out of nowhere and jump to a totally different set of characters. Now I know she probably did this to make the book more anticipating and to where you wanted to just fly through the book, but to me, I just felt like I was just like the POVs were unhinged. There was no reason there should have been that many POVs. And if there was that many POVs, there's no reason that these POVs should have been in the same chapter. It just did not flow well. It felt so chaotic. It was like I was in a stadium up in the pews and there were like 8 pit fights going on down there, and I'm just trying to keep my eyes on what's going on, and I just couldn't figure out what's going on because everything was just happening at one time. Ugh. Indigestion again. Maybe if she had just taken the time and focused on 1 or 2 POVs in a chapter, it wouldn't have felt so disjointed. Girl, the ending. While I enjoyed the Asteri plot, this ending was so predictable. There was no high stakes at all. We all know how Mass does. We knew that nobody important was gonna get killed off, and if they did get killed off, they were gonna get resurrected again. If you've read of Court of Wings and Ruin, you would know that she tends to have a pattern with what happens during epic battles. We yet again ally with a dark force, which in this case is obviously hell. The sprites show up at the very last minute to help save the day. And of course, there's the bad guy confrontation between Lydia and Pollux. But the thing that pissed me off the most and that I saw from literally 18 miles away was the resurrection of Bryce. You know what? Let me just find it and read it to you. Okay, here it is. And he finally let the mask say the word that he had been ignoring since he grabbed her in the depths of space. Dead. Like, I saw that coming from a mile away. So anticlimactic. And literally, I'm not even kidding you, the next chapter, she's resurrected. It felt all too familiar whenever Rice croaked over in A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then all of a sudden, Rice was back to life in the next chapter. If you're gonna kill somebody off, kill them off. No more of this dramatic, oh, they're dead, never coming back again, but through the power of love, they're resurrected. Not everything can be resurrected through the power of love. I'm so tired of her killing off people and then just being like, oh, they came back because love. They came back because unity. They came back because somebody else was so powerful. Like, no! The story plot is way too heavy and not nearly enough character development. Even though in the end, everything came together and it was all cleaned up, it was like I was on a rocky, pothole-filled road with no GPS trying to find my way home. Like, it was ridiculous. I know for a fact Sarah J. Maas could have just cut out some of these POVs because a lot of them were extremely unnecessary, and she could have made this a lot more character-focused on the characters that we needed to see, and then she could have cut out the extra fluff and it would have been more organized. And like I said, a few of these characters didn't get the attention that they deserved at all. For example, again, Ethan and his power, way too rushed. Rune and Lydia could have been an epic, beautiful love story, way too rushed, not enough focusing on trauma, not enough going over how we're gonna heal. It just was so unorganized, and I know she's such an amazing author and I love literally almost everything that she's read, but this was just bad. I mean, we literally didn't even get time for Hunt, Rune, and Baxian to even deal with their trauma that they dealt with in the dungeons. It was just like, oh, you're saved. Now your hand was munched off and you rolled in your filth and you were starved and you were tortured and your guts were ripped out and then you were repaired again and then your wings were cut off and they were put back on, and all of that just to shove in a box because we got too much going on. Like, we should have talked about that. And again, Rune and Lydia, not only did they not get enough spotlight to sift through all their baggage, we were absolutely robbed of a beautiful love story. Kind of similar to how we were robbed of our chance to see Alorcrin more in Throne of Glass. Now, I completely understand the need for the plot to be the main focus in this book because of all the loose ends that we had to tie up from the previous two books, but we literally got like a queef of Lydia and Rune's romance, and it was just so unsatisfying. And not to mention, we start out with these two when things between them are real bad, and then all of a sudden everything's just peaches and cream. We're just gonna move on. Like, I mean, I get it. The book is 838 pages long, but this romance should have just waited until the next book if she wasn't going to give it the spotlight it deserved. Because now we just missed our opportunity to see how this relationship came to be and how they're going to repair all their trauma, because we went from hating each other to now we're in a relationship. It's just a huge missed opportunity. Okay, now let's talk about Hunt and Bryce. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this book down because it's way too heavy for me to be holding this entire time. Look at my pit stains. Oh my god. Oh my god, is that a hole? Why can't I just wear nice things? I gotta sweat like a freaking buffalo. Okay, starting out with their reunion. This was one of the most horribly anticlimactic reunions I have literally ever read in my entire life. When Bryce magically finds Hunt because she tells her mind that she wants to teleport home.
There's no place like home. There's no place.
And he's in the middle of this meeting with the Ocean Queen, and instead of being like, oh my god, Hunt, I missed you so much, I love you, I never thought I would ever see you again, I have spent eons across the universe missing your soul, you know, all that sappy crap that we wanted. No, none of that happened. She literally side-eyes him and like acknowledges him like that, and like proceeds to like boss babe to the Ocean Queen and is like, yeah, you need to come help my people, you need to come help us because the Asteria are bad and we need your protection services. And she just doesn't, like, she literally just was in Perithian and she was just talking about how much that she wanted to get back to Hunt. Hunt was her mate. He's supposed to be like the person that she's just absolutely obsessed with and loves him so much, and like their souls are just intertwined and can't stand to be apart, yet thought he was dead, he thought she was dead, and whenever they reunite, they just side glance at each other and don't even get to hugging until after the meeting with the queen. Like, now let's just talk about them as a couple as a whole. Now, I don't want to start any beef, but where's the chemistry? Compared to other couples in the Mass universe, this couple is so extremely bland. Their love is supposed to span across universe and time, yet it's not giving that at all. It's like literally a grain of salt compared to Faison. Faison, he would, you know, crush the world for her. He's serving that energy. She is serving the energy that like he is High Lord, her number one boo thing. Hunt and Bryce are not giving at all. We're not getting that at all. I'm getting like boyfriend from high school that if we break up, we break up. That's the vibes that I'm getting. Like, honestly, I forgot that they were even married in this book. Now let's talk about Bryce specifically. I'm sorry, but she is my least favorite female main character in the Mass universe. She literally comes off as the most immature, selfish, pick-me girl I have ever read in a story ever. At this point, if I have to read about how hot she is according to literally every other guy in the universe besides her brother, and how extremely funny her stupidly terrible jokes are, I'm gonna lose it. I get that she's supposed to be giving that slay queen, boss babe vibes, but there's a time and a place for that. Like, literally there's times in the story where she should be serious and she should not be cracking jokes and giving this it girl pick me vibes, and she is just currently serving it's all about me vibes. Like, I'm just so over her. She's literally so obnoxious and it just feels so forced. Let's take a step back and let's look at the origin stories of the other chosen one female main characters. So we have Feyre, who is literally a huntress and went to go out in the woods and serve her family and literally took care of them and kept them from death. We have Aelin, who was an assassin and an absolute boss babe and such a slay. And then we have Bryce, who is this party girl. The other female main characters had proven that they could be the chosen ones, and Bryce has absolutely nothing to offer that shows that she would be a good leader and worth merit besides that she was trained by Randall and was Danica's friend, yet somehow she now convinces everybody to follow her. She also never actually learned any skill. They were all inherited to her, and she's learning to build upon the powers of others, so everything was given to her. It's giving nepotism brat. And not to mention, she was incredibly selfish whenever she unleashed the Asteri in Perithian with no second thought about it, because she wanted to get answers from the Asteri on how to kill the other Asteris, and look where that ended up. She didn't even get the answers that she really wanted. Thank God Nesta was there and she was slaying the house down, because if she wasn't, she would have literally possibly killed an entire planet by unleashing an Asteri. And then Bryce tells Hunt, her supposed soulmate, whenever he's trying to discuss his trauma, that he just needs to toughen up. Girl, what? Lastly, Bryce hating all the Fae because she had some bad experiences with one or two Fae. What about Rune, Declan, Flynn, who are all supposed to be her friends, who are all good people? They're just irrelevant, they don't matter. Guess to hell with them, because she writes off an entire race/species because she had a bad experience with a few. Moving on to Therian. I could not stand him in book 1 or 2, and now I specifically can't stand him the worst of all in book 3. I honestly don't know if anybody actually likes Therian. And if they do, I'm not sure why, because all I've seen from him is that he is extremely selfish and just as immature as Bryce is. And he's giving off hella boy vibes. Once again, he doesn't go through any character growth either. Like, please tell me why this man had such a huge chunk in this book when it literally mattered nothing at all to the overall story. I mean, I guess it was Sarah J. Maas setting up the next book for him to have a big spotlight, but I really hope that isn't the case, because if that is the case, I better see some extreme character transformations like we did in A Court of Silver Flames, because unless that happens, I think I might be done with Crescent City. So many dang unimportant characters. Starting out with Declan and Flynn. So Declan's supposed to be this tech guy that Maas can basically just call on whenever she needs somebody to hack into any computer systems, which, how convenient. But Flynn, I literally can't think of a single thing that Flynn has done to merit anything to the storyline. Baxian. Cool. Dude's Danica's mate. But what else is he besides that? Just another guy to fight for Bryce? Sigrid. This character had so much potential, but alas, she was just used as a pawn to push forward another character arc. I'm assuming she's going to be a big plot in the next book, but I wouldn't be surprised if Maas just ties up that loose end real fast. Sathia. So random. She shows up out of nowhere for a surprise arranged marriage to Therian. I literally forgot Flynn even had a sister. Once again, I can only assume that this is a setup for a plot in the next book, because if it's not, then what else was that for? Just another thing to complicate the storyline? Bryce's only female friends, Fury and Juniper, have like no appearance whatsoever in the story. Fury's supposed to be this bad boss babe who's like a super good fighter, yet whenever it comes time to have the big epic Asteri battle, Fury's nowhere to be found. She's not a part of the story. Something small that had bothered me too to was the fact that Bryce drops off her parents in Perithian with Nesta before the big fight goes on. This is all on the same day. And then the fight happens and she goes back to pick up her parents, and her parents have already been given the same magical bean that Bryce was given to make them understand the language. And then Nesta has somehow become so emotionally attached to Bryce's mom that she's over here about to cry because Bryce's mom is leaving, and Bryce's parents have already met basically everybody in ACOTAR and has made these bonds with these characters over the span of a couple hours. Like, literally the bond between Nesta and Bryce's mom is supposed to be so intense that apparently Nesta's crying whenever Bryce's mom leaves. I don't know. It just felt like it didn't make any sense. How are you gonna drop somebody off for a day and then the whole family's just like, I just don't understand. Moving on to Adis being shady. Okay, please tell me why he didn't tell Bryce the entire truth. What, because she wasn't ready and he couldn't risk telling her and the Asteri finding out, so he sends her on this crazy mad goose chase that's extremely dangerous for no reason to make her find everything out on her own whenever he could have just told her? What's up with this story? First, Danica withholding information, and now we got Adis withholding information that was extremely important to the story. For what? Does nobody trust Bryce, but apparently she's the chosen one and the leader, but nobody can tell her the truth? Also, strange that hell, a realm that has been trying to overthrow the Asteri for 15,000 years, is currently helping other realms defeat similar beings, but they won't come to help Bryce figure out what she needs to do to help her planet, besides them creating the Thunderbirds, like, what was it, almost 2 eons ago? So they're just completely content to let possibly billions die over the years to wait for Thea's heir to come, yet whenever Adis figures out that that's Thea's heir, instead of trying to help her get ready and help her defeat the Asteri, he's just like, can't trust her. She'll figure it out on her own. There just really wasn't a good enough reason for Hell not to step up and Adis to be so sneaky with the truth. So overall thoughts. Was this the absolute worst book that I've ever read? No. But did I like this book and think that it was worth the hype? No. Would I recommend this book to others? Hell no. Honestly, I felt so robbed with the ACOTAR crossover. Even though Sarah J. Maas never specifically said that we were gonna have this epic ACOTAR crossover into the Crescent City world, the cliffhanger that she left us off on Crescent City 2, I mean, what else did she expect? She knew that we were gonna all be obsessed and that people who love ACOTAR, such a strong fan base, whenever they figured out that there was gonna be a crossing over of their favorite world, that they were gonna go out, they were gonna buy Crescent City, they were gonna read it in hopes to have this awesome epic crossover of their beloved characters, and she knew that too. But instead of giving us this epic crossover, we got like 10 minutes of Nesta and Azriel together with Bryce in a cave. Some of the other characters were briefly mentioned, but other than that, there was literally nothing else. The entire point of the ACOTAR crossover was to figure out the history of Perithian and how it tied to Midgard and the Asteri, but Adis knowing all this information, we could have completely omitted the ACOTAR crossover entirely. I mean, I guess at some point she did have to go over there and get her Starlight, but the ACOTAR characters could have been avoided entirely for this to happen, so there was really no reason for the crossover besides a cash grab. And it's really hard for me to think that this wasn't a cash grab, especially whenever she released, like, I think it was more than 6 different copies of this book that all had different bonus chapters with different characters. So of course, people who love Crescent City and they want to read these bonus chapters, they're gonna go out and they're gonna buy the same book like 6 times, which is just a lot of money for her. So in the end, I think it was fine. The scratch of the multiverse was fun or whatever, but it definitely could have been explored more than it was. The ending came together, wrapped up in a pretty little bow, but it was just a huge letdown. It just wasn't what I personally wanted. Maybe I just set my expectations too high. Regardless, I do feel like this was setting us up to think there was gonna be this huge multiverse crossover, and I think it was just a tease to get more people to read the book. Regardless, Sarah J. Maas will always be one of my favorite authors. She wrote ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, which will always hold a special place in my heart, but this just was absolutely chaotic. It felt unorganized, things felt rushed, it felt like it was a cash grab, which felt the dirtiest of all, and it just wasn't written like the Maas that I love. I really was hoping to immerse myself in this story, and I just found myself just trying to keep up with the book. I am still very excited for the next ACOTAR book to come out between, I believe, Elaine and Azriel, which is going to be amazing, and I'm hoping that we get the Maas that we all love and not whatever this was. But for the love of God, God. Please do not let it have more than 2 POVs, or I think I might just end it all. Comment down below and let me know what you thought of this book and the series as a whole and where you think it's going. I want to know what you think. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff that you guys know how to do. I had a great time hanging out with you guys today, and I can't wait to see you guys again soon.